The European Union is moving swiftly to a communist-style totalitarian nightmare, as the mask of democracy, which already began slipping off during the pandemic, has now been revealed as problematic for the socialist big government ruling class. The evil stirring within the EU is nearing a point of no return, my friends, from mass censorship of citizens everywhere across the bloc to the heads of the European Union actually deciding to void elections and refusing to accept the outcome because they didn't like the results and didn't agree with it. For example, Romania's election forcing a redo after a surprise victory that went against the socialist march of the EU, even publicly suggesting that they might do the same to Germany if the Alternative für Deutschland, or Alternative for Germany, gets too much power in future elections. Which then takes us to the latest outrage within the European Union, their latest attempt to thwart democracy, to deny the will of the people. Let's head to France, where Marine Le Pen, the leader of the right-wing populist movement, has now been banned from running for the French presidency under charges of corruption. This is an article discussing this from The Guardian. It is titled, "This Will Backfire. Le Pen Allies Hit Out at Paris Court's 2027 Election Ban Verdict." Nationalist and populist figures around the world, from Elon Musk to Viktor Orban, have united in condemnation of a Paris court verdict barring Marine Le Pen from running in the country's 2027 presidential elections. In a bombshell ruling many believe could boost support for the party, the figurehead of France's far-right nationalist rally party was sentenced on Monday to 4 years imprisonment, half suspended, and banned from running for public office for 5 years, meaning they're attempting to keep her out of the 2027 elections, all for the price of embezzlement of European Parliament funds. Now, even if the legal evidence against her was substantial, the court's ruling could prove highly divisive politically, potentially firing up Le Pen's supporters. Yeah, look what happened to Donald Trump. You try to convict him right before an election. What do you think is going to happen? Now, the National Rally Party's three-time presidential candidate, the front-runner in many polls to succeed Emmanuel Macron in 2 years' time, has said she will appeal against the decision, but her allies at home and abroad hid out as soon as the verdict was announced. Here in the U.S., where the Vice President, J.D. Vance, has attacked centrist European government, you mean far radical leftist European governments with their Orwellian thought police controls, for running in fear of voters and suppressing democracy. Musk, a close advisor to the U.S. president, said when the radical left can't win via democratic vote, they abuse the legal system to jail their opponents. This is their standard playbook throughout the world, and he is not wrong. And he added that this will backfire like the legal attacks against President Trump. Now, Hungary's illiberal Prime Minister Viktor Orban posted in French on social media saying, "I am Marine," referencing the rallying cry widely used in support after the 2015 Islamic attack on the Charlie Hebdo satirical magazine. In the Netherlands, the far-right Freedom Party leader Geert Wilders said he was shocked by the incredible tough verdict, adding, "I support and believe in her for the full 100%, and I trust she will win the appeal and become the president of France." And then there was Tom van Grieken of Belgium's Vlaams Belang, or however the hell you pronounce that, who called the decision an attack on democracy. While Santiago Abascal, the leader of Spain's far-right Vox party, said they will never succeed to silence the voice of the French people. And Matteo Salvini, Italy's deputy prime minister and the leader of the Right League Party, said those who fear the judgment of the voters often find reassurance in the judgment of the courts. In Paris, they condemned Marine Le Pen and would like to exclude her from political life. A declaration of war by Brussels. A bad film that we are also seeing in other countries such as Romania. Earlier this month, Romania's constitutional court upheld a decision to ban the, quote, far-right, end quote, presidential election frontrunner from standing in a rerun of the vote in May after the initial result was annulled because of suspected Russian interference. Would you look at that? They're just going to ban him outright because he won the first time. Surprise, surprise. Even in Moscow, the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said that more and more European capitals were trampling over democratic norms and showing themselves not at all reluctant to go beyond democracy during the political process. And indeed, they are right. Now, Le Pen's allies at home were equally damning. Jordan Bardella, the RN's youthful president and Le Pen's likely replacement if she cannot stand, said she was the victim of an unjust verdict and claimed French democracy was being executed. Some conservative politicians also expressed their reservations about the impact of the ruling. The center-right Les Republicains said it was not healthy for an elected official to be prevented from running in an election, saying political debates must be settled at the ballot box, and it is the French people who must decide, adding that the court's decision would weigh heavily on the functioning of the French democracy. And even on the radical left, Greece's former finance minister said a panicking illiberal establishment across the West was diving headlong into a totalitarian pit, and France's neo-fascists will only benefit from this. So, the left, the socialist-leaning left in the EU, they are panicking because they are losing the battle here, and they are doing everything they can to stop the populist parties from gaining power. Now, this shift towards right-wing populism in France and all across Europe really, is scaring the elites who are at risk of losing their power that they have carefully been accumulating since the creation of the European Union. Recent polls in France are painting a clear picture. Marine Le Pen's National Rally Party is riding high. Post-snap legislative elections in July, for example, of 2024, had the RN party securing 37% of the vote in the second round, translating to 143 seats in the National Assembly, which was a record haul. That is up, by the way, from 89 seats in 2022 and just a mere 6 in 2017. Which, by the way, happens to be not long after mass migration of Islamic trending folks started showing up in France and all over the EU. Now, while they didn't clinch the 289 seats needed for an absolute majority, the growth is undeniable. It is big. And looking ahead to the 2027 presidential race, polls vary, but shows right now that RN's party is persisting. Even now, with Marine Le Pen's conviction, her party's base remains unshaken. Now you might be asking, well, how do we get to this? Why are French citizens and citizens across the EU revolting against their government masters? Well, there's a lot of reasons for this. First, there's the economic stagnation. France's economy has been sluggish for some time now. Employment still lingers around 7%, but joblessness among the young is double that, at 14%, and public debt is ballooning well past their GDP. It's currently at 110%. You couple this with the ever-growing encroachment of Orwellian government control, and you have a recipe for the French becoming deeply suspicious of their government. But perhaps the biggest piece of the puzzle, which is ironic considering it's also one of the primary drivers here in the US that propelled Donald Trump into power, is mass immigration. Particularly in France, of the Islamic bent. It is a huge lightning rod for the French people. And RN's hardline stance against it, think border controls and slashed immigrant benefits, resonates with the French, who are seen and feeling culturally and economically threatened. And this story you could replicate all across the European Union. Massive government overreach and millions of immigrants flooding the zone. Europe as we know it is at deep risk of being turned into tyrannical government dictatorships. The EU is mass moving towards a communist-style government here, and the people want out. Now, whether or not this will happen, though, remains to be seen, and really, only time will tell what happens next.